Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, and I'm joined in the studio by James and Callum. How you going, boys?
Good, how are you?
Good. That's a bit awkward, but anyway, moving on.
No one would have known if you didn't just say it was so awkward. Now
Our
it's being
five
recorded.
listeners listen to the podcast. No, it's awkward.
Yeah, everyone listens to the podcast. No one would know what happened if
Okay.
you didn't just mention it now. Now I can see it's recording. Now
Okay.
we're talking about it, and people are like, "What are they talking about?"
Yes,
Hey,
podcast listeners. This is a radio show first.
Yeah, but we can make things up because most people don't listen live, so we can make things
Gorilla
up.
just
We can
went
say-
through the door.
Yeah, there was a
Wow.
gorilla. It was crazy.
Yeah, sorry, we were just watching the public exhibitionists through the window. Anyway, Callum's like, "Oh God, you're gonna get us in trouble." Please, we're the Golden Boys.
Oh
Callum's
my
like,
God.
"Ah."
This went off the rails really quickly. What the hell?
Anyway,
I think I'm
just
going to have to be
joking
behind a
around.
desk from now on.
Yeah. Callum's quitting the show, everybody. It's too awkward.
We
for him.
quit. All right, this is it, everyone.
All
We're
right.
quitting. We're walking out.
All right, see you later. I'll monologue into the wind.
All right.
Tonight we are talking WandaVision. We are talking about Disney Plus.
Again.
We said we
Whoa.
wouldn't. Last week we said we wouldn't be talking about Disney Plus.
And
And
well, to be fair, we said we wouldn't talk about Disney Star.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I mean, to be
It's
fair.
related.
Also, to be fair, there's the pandemic and just everything that's come out is on streaming. And out of all the streaming, Disney Plus is
They're the ones doing the weeklies.
doing the big stuff.
Yeah.
You know, at the moment, anyway.
And look, and they're doing that weekly drip sort of thing. So we're
Yeah.
guaranteed to talk about it once every few months anyway.
Yeah. Which I mean, and they're dropping heaps of stuff with all the Marvel.
Well,
content,
I was talking to Callum about that today, and I'm like, is there long-term goal here to have like 3 months, 6 months worth of like Marvel content, and then 6 months worth of Star Wars content, live action shows?
That makes sense.
I mean, that's the way it's going, sort of, because it's
Yeah.
like we had the Mandalorian. If we're imagining all the other live action sort of stuff taking part in the same half of the year.
And after the once the movies sort of get back to normal, Marvel and Star Wars, between each, even though there's like 3 Marvel movies a year, 4 now. What are they doing now? But there's still a couple months where there's no movies, so then they can just drop the TV shows in between, and so it's like
a constant, Marvel never leaves your life.
Yeah, it's like Marvel, Star Wars all the time, all year long.
Excellent.
Which when I was a kid, that sounds amazing.
Sounds
but
good,
now,
but it also sounds like fatigue.
Yeah, now I'm like, yeah.
You know what, though? Like, for me, I look forward to Friday nights. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not so much that... the individual programs like WandaVision, we'll talk about in greater detail in a minute, but we all liked it.
Yeah.
So it's not only just how good the quality is, it's the idea that there's a new episode every week. Now, I know it's streaming, and that's the old world mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's the once a week, is the Ed show, serialized or whatever. But I'm like, I kind of look forward to it. As nice as it is to have the bulk drops where you can just smash through something. Especially with WandaVision having the kind of end reveals that it did, you have to wait a week and the anticipation gets greater.
I prefer the binge, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's nice to have something to look forward to every week.
Like when every day's the same, it's like, well, 2 days left until WandaVision.
I guess
for me, Thursdays is Riverdale.
Yeah,
And then Fridays is like Disney.
Like at work, right? There's multiple people who I work with who watch WandaVision.
Yeah.
So it's like Thursday comes around, and like my boss or my 2IC will be like, WandaVision tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's that feeling of
It's
energy.
the water cooler
I
conversation.
guess the water cooler thing doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah, it happens once in depth with a bulk drop, and then it's like done.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I would prefer the binge.
Yeah, there's
like drop it
definitely-
all at once.
There's definitely pros and cons.
Even with WandaVision, after all said and done, I was like, I could have just watched that in a day, like that.
I think you said it could have been a movie, basically.
It should have just like been a 2-hour special, really.
I mean,
like at the end of the day, like it wasn't worth the week to week. I mean, it was a great show and I enjoyed it, but in terms of the week to week,
the payoffs
yeah.
and stuff.
And I think even more so with Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is only 6 episodes, I believe. I feel like that one could definitely just drop at once.
Yeah.
But because they're committed to this week to week.
Put a little more production value into it, and then release it as like a star movie. You know what I mean?
That's what I was gonna say. It's like it does at the end of the day. It does the same thing. Like story wise, it'll get to the same place.
Yeah.
And they really wouldn't have lost much. Should we just announce spoilers?
Oh yeah, spoiler warning for anything Marvel at this point.
Yeah, all of MCU and all of WandaVision, obviously.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Especially like if they were building it up as like WandaVision was a movie only on streaming, and like it will be the same kind of hype.
I think that would be even maybe even more hype because it's like MCU movies.
The next MCU movie is streaming on Disney.
Streaming only.
Yeah,
it's like, and then like there's the caveat of it's not a real MCU movie. Yeah. It's like a second tier.
I mean, even if you do it right, you don't even need the budget of like a proper traditional release. Either.
Honestly, I mean, we should just talk it now.
The budget was fine for what we saw.
I mean, the budget was huge. Yeah, like but we talked about how we loved the sitcom homage. Each week was a different homage to a different era of sitcoms, and Callum and I especially were just like, the whole show should just be that. But that only lasted 5 episodes, I want to say.
And then it started to get more serious.
And then it just went full, like, Marvel now movie, it's just a Marvel movie. And I was like, really? I enjoyed the week to week. I enjoyed this. Each week was a sitcom. But after all said and done, you could just refocus the budget of those sections on the big Marvel-y action, sci-fi CGI sections.
And I think this is one of the problems I have with the show, is that they had to pull a villain out. Really, I would have preferred a show that was just about Wanda, and maybe Wanda inadvertently causing all the issues in the town.
To bring listeners up to speed, if you haven't seen WandaVision, please
go
before you listen to the review. Please do.
And this is not starting the review. I'm just going back to what James was saying. If they had just continued with the sitcom, but it gets darker and weirder and more torture-y, like in between the sitcom style gags, like it could have worked for me a little bit better than just pulling out a villain in the last 2 episodes and being like, it's like a Marvel movie.
I think what they were doing from the beginning, and what they'll do with all the other MCU series, and it shouldn't be a surprise because Kevin Feige said that they're part of the main, like they tie in very deeply with the main MCU. So what they're doing is you kind of have to watch this story to understand what happens in the next movie, or the next movie with Wanda.
The idea that WandaVision will tie into Doctor Strange and so on.
So if you haven't seen WandaVision and you watch Doctor Strange, I'm sure you could pick things up. I'm sure they might do a recap or a little flashback, but you'll be missing things. They could have definitely done a show that was still connected, but more just like if you missed the show, not a big deal. You're watching the show because it's a fun story to tell. And if they wanted to do that, they should have stuck to the whole sitcom thing. And it's just like 6 episodes. Each week is a different sitcom. It gets darker and darker. Maybe there's a reveal at the end, whatever.
Yeah.
But what they're doing, like I said, is what Kevin Feige said they're doing, which is just like, this is just another part of the MCU story. They introduce a heap of stuff, Monica and White Vision and all this stuff, and that's obviously really important for when you go to watch the movies. And because they're doing that, it would have been better if they kind of just focused more on that.
It's
and
muddled.
Didn't worry about the whole sitcom gag.
Yeah.
Because the sitcom gag's great and we all loved it, but at the end of the day, that's not really what the show was about, and
it's a different story.
It wasn't really necessary.
It has to pick a lane, really.
Yeah.
Go full Marvel movie action, sort of deep lore, or go full sitcom.
Or go fun TV show, like you watched the show week to week. Yeah.
So for listeners who haven't seen WandaVision, who aren't interested in watching it and just listen to this review, I don't know why you would.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I know.
You wanted to listen to us, even though...
essentially, Wanda... the Scarlet Witch from the comics. We'll get into that Monica later. Essentially, falls in love with a synthezoid called the Vision, played by Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
Did you say Paul Bettany?
No, Paul Bettany. They kind of fall in love in the movies, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He dies in the Infinity War. Thanos rips the gem out or whatever, I think.
Rips his Infinity Stone out of his head.
And then he dies because he's like, for all the emotions he might feel, he's not a real man.
Yeah. He's a robot.
Based on Wonder Man.
In the comics, but not in the movie.
It's based on what, Jarvis or something? Or something
in
weird like that in the
MCU, Ultron was creating himself a new body.
And he created Vision.
But then Jarvis, to combat Ultron, went inside the Vision body But then, like, I think Bruce Banner says something like, it's not just Jarvis, it's like a bit of Ultron, a bit of Tony, a bit of this, and Vision on himself, and a bit of...
on a life of its own.
And the...
A bit of Mind
it's
Stone.
the Mind Stone, isn't it? And the Mind Stone has obviously its own...
Sentience.
sentience. So it's like...
amalgamation of all these things.
Yeah, Vision is his own person because he's a little bit from everywhere.
Yeah, it's like the Mind Stone is... I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert in MCU lore, but I'm assuming that the Mind Stone is the soul. So you get all of these bits and pieces, which are like the conscious, like the memories and the not memories, the personality, and then the Mind Stone ignites it all.
So when Thanos takes out the stone, he dies. Yeah. But they do say in Endgame or Infinity War where Shuri is trying to revive him, and they're like, look, we don't know how much of Vision is actually left without the stone. Let's just try to revive him. And they don't never get a chance. Yeah. And now this show picks up, and S.W.O.R.D., which is like S.H.I.E.L.D., but not.
Space S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is S.H.I.E.L.D., because I can't remember, because in MCU, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been deactivated or whatever the word is. Yeah. Because Hydra took over. So in the MCU, only S.W.O.R.D. exists now.
At the moment?
I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. could always come back, but I guess at the moment they're pushing S.W.O.R.D. as the new...
S.W.O.R.D.'s focused on space, which is the next...
Which is the Captain Marvel
stuff,
which
also the next
we'll talk
phase
about.
in sort of the MCU.
But anyway, so S.W.O.R.D. grabs Vision's body and is disassembling him because he's a living weapon, quote unquote. But in reality, they're doing cheeky stuff where they're trying to repurpose him and make him their mindless drone soldier weapon.
As would happen in real life.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't blame him, yeah. He's dead. I mean...
Yeah, and Wanda's like...
It's US Army property right now.
Yeah, and Wanda's like, I want my husband back or whatever. And they're like, no, he's dangerous. And she's like, whatever, and bounces
Your husband's
out
gone
of
with the Mind Stone lane.
Yeah.
You just want these wires back?
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to say is, in the movies when Shuri is trying to fix him and she doesn't have time, whatever, they're hinting at like Vision isn't just the Mind Stone, he's something else. And if you could fix the body or whatever, you could bring him back. They don't really explore that in the show.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was just something they forgot about. You know what I mean?
They sort of...
I think they just chose a different direction.
They sort of do in a roundabout way. The fact that he exists in this imaginary world, her powers sort of come from the Mind Stone.
Well, that's what I think. I think what they decided to do, because Wanda is such an important part of Vision's life, and they're an important part of each other's life. I think they just decided to drop the whole sciencey part and go like... And Wanda even says at the end, like, because she creates Vision, like her own version of Vision, like a fake...
Yeah, like a golem, almost.
Almost, yeah. And she says to him, like, you're the part of the Mind Stone that lives inside me, because her powers...
And I guess it's
so that makes sense.
It's straightforward enough to be like, look, his power before was derived from the Mind Stone, so we can just bring him back with power.
I know. I think we should before we start doing a deep dive into all these things, we should probably just set the stage for what we're actually talking about. Essentially, WandaVision starts. Basically, it starts as a sitcom, but we don't really know that. And then it's revealed that there are people outside the sitcom watching it, which are S.W.O.R.D. And so essentially, the mystery is, what is the Hex, which is a barrier that surrounds a town mysteriously? Yeah. And Wanda and her family, because it starts with her and Vision, but then they have kids and so on. And there's neighbors, and everyone lives a life that's like scripted almost. Yeah. I mean, you don't know. You don't know that when it starts. But it's very.
And you don't know if it's clear early on that sort of Wanda's created it, but you don't know if she
can control it.
You don't know if she's controlling it, or
you don't know what her memory's like at the point in time.
You know that Wanda sort of manifested this Hex, but you don't know anything about context or reasons.
Yeah, you don't know how it came purposeful it is.
Yeah, so it's the story of S.W.O.R.D. trying to figure out how to penetrate and solve the mysteries of the Hex, while also essentially Wanda dealing with grief at the same time. Yeah. And so, as the story goes on, more of the mysteries get unveiled. And we've already announced full spoilers. So the story kind of concludes with there being an overall villain, apparently, who's having her own way inside the Hex. So she didn't create the Hex, but she's adjusting it to her whim, kind of. And we'll, I think we should just start from the top.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how I think we should start with. We're not going to do like a whole deep dive onto every single thing that happens in the show, but I think
we don't have
should,
10 hours.
Yeah, I think we should. We'll start with.
We could do ours just on the finale.
We'll start with. I think we should just at least start with discussing Monica Rambeau.
Yes.
And Sword and how that's like how they're operating external of the Hex.
Yeah. So I mean, first we'll talk about, Captain Marvel. Personally, me and Callum, I think you didn't really like it. It wasn't a good movie.
I liked it.
Yeah, but
each to their own. You know what I mean? Like it got good reviews.
But I think one of the reasons we didn't like it is because it kind of took the Marvel canon and history and kind of just crapped on it. It didn't do a good job of recontextualizing it for the movies. It just kind of picked a couple of things and then went,
Yeah, I mean, my big problem with it was Captain Marvel was such a larger-than-life figure in the comics, especially in the 70s and the 80s, and that whole, not franchise is the wrong word, but that legacy.
Yeah.
And of course, they took Marvel and they made him just a scientist who didn't really have anything to do with anything at all, which I thought was just ridiculous.
Yeah. And they took the Skrulls and they made them like
good guys,
but also there was only like a handful of them left on a ship somewhere.
The natural Skrull accent was Aussie, which is one of the good things they are retconning. Because I'm pretty sure there are Skrulls with American accents.
Oh no, one of the problems is that there was no consistency. It's just Mendo was like, I'm going to do an Aussie accent, and they're like, fine.
He's like
and
that,
then
he's
everyone
like that
else.
with every movie now, though, unless he really cares about it.
Not every movie, but like
anyway, that's the thing I love.
But that's part of the problem was there was no consistency. Yeah. The director didn't say, "Hey, can you do a different accent?"
And also the Fury scratch was just
that's
silly.
unforgivable. How bad that is.
But one of the things I thought was a missed opportunity for Marvel was having Rambeau as Captain Marvel. Because before Captain Marvel even came out, I was talking to James and I said, as much as I like Carol Danvers, she's not even the coolest female Captain Marvel.
Yeah. But I mean, here's the thing where
Which is where we got other people started talking about Rambeau as well, because she was featured in the movie as a little girl at the time.
Yeah.
So when we see her in the first episode or the second episode, in the first episode of...
But you don't know it's her. Yeah. In WandaVision, you don't know it's her yet.
Not initially. Yeah. But she's all grown up.
Yeah. But like, here's the thing of like, Carol Danvers was the obvious choice, and that was always going to be her, and that's fine. But the Carol Danvers in the comics was like a fun hotshot pilot and a cool character. And the way they interpreted her for the Captain Marvel movie was very stoic and sour. And that, along with all the other bad choices in the movie, added to the...
she's very good guy kind of in the comics. I mean, she's very kind of bright and happy is the wrong word, but she's kind of happy to be around.
But the fact that they made all these bad choices that we've been talking about, and on top of that, they kind of screwed up the character of Carol Danvers. It makes it even more of a like pain. I can't think of the word, that they didn't just go with Monica in the first place.
Yeah.
And like I said, I understand why they didn't go with Monica in the first place. But because they screwed it up...
Especially considering Carol Danvers was like the Captain Marvel when they were making the film.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an obvious, like you said, it's an obvious choice. I understand it.
But fast forward to WandaVision, and the first like 3 episodes, I want to say, one of Wanda's neighbors, I forget the name she uses, is actually revealed to be Monica Rambeau grown up.
Yeah.
And when that dropped, I just messaged Callum. I'm like, watch WandaVision now. And then you were like, I'll watch it. And I was just like, Monica.
Yeah, I know.
But one thing I really liked was when they do like name drop her, is the scene where, because she's been snapped or blipped.
Yeah.
And to kind of reintroduce her as Monica, they show like a flashback to when everyone came back. And I was like,
in one of the reviews, we must have been Endgame. We talked about how there was a missed opportunity with not examining life with the snap and the repercussions further, and we got a little taste. This is exactly what
I want to say. WandaVision is great for many reasons and has some problems as well. But one of the best things I like about it is that it actually shows some of the aftermath of the snap.
Yeah.
Or the blip. So there are some the hospital scene, obviously, where she comes back, and there's a scene where her boss is treating her differently because she's been gone for 5 years, and she's like, "You don't have to do that. I'm ready to work." And he's like, "Nah, you should do desk duty. You know, things are different." And he's treating her like crap. There are a couple other moments as well where I was like, this show really deals with the aftermath. And that's what MCU needed. They can't just fast forward 5 years and then go ignore it.
Yeah.
And we said when Spider-Man Far From Home came out, I was like, how are they going to deal with it? And that movie just didn't deal with it. And it's like that movie's basically just a comedy. It's like, yeah, but this is where they're starting to deal with it, and I'm hoping there's more of this in the future.
Well, will there be? You reckon there'll be more of it
I don't think there is, but I don't think there will be, but I hope there is, because you can't just have half the population gone for 5 years and then they all come back and then just be like, well, back to normal.
All the ruined families,
because
all the marriages.
Because the MCU works the way it does, they're definitely just gonna not. Yeah, they're just gonna ignore it all.
We might get a few bits and pieces, but I don't think we'll get like. You could have a whole TV show about the snap.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they should do that, but they definitely need to.
I think we'll get a little bit more, only because WandaVision was an insular show, right? Set in the Hex. Yeah. It was a very specific place.
Yeah.
I think we don't know all that much about Captain America and Winter Soldier yet, but there's more opportunity if it's set in like a modern day existence. There's more opportunity if it just in passively.
Especially if Falcon and Winter Soldier takes place in like DC and there's like the government agency.
There could be more passive recognition of the snap. Just because it's not focused in like
they're not in an extra dimension.
Or like Hex.
This is something I think we talked about when Endgame came out, and I was like, this is such a huge choice for them to make, to skip 5 years. Like, there has to be ramifications for that. But at the end of the day, I don't think they really thought about it that much. I think they only did it so that Tony Stark's daughter could be a bit older and kind of realize what was happening with her father. And then other than that, there wasn't really a good reason for it. And I don't think until now they ever really dealt with it well. Yeah. So I'm hoping that they can, even if they drop in just a few hints here and there.
I think it's important.
It's definitely important. You can't drop something like that in the middle of your franchise and then be like, back to normal now.
Yeah, no, I think there's more opportunity in Winter Soldier and Captain America to deal with that than there is in WandaVision. And if they do a little bit of it in WandaVision, we might get some more in the next show.
Some more later,
Yeah, so
Loki, I don't expect it at all.
No. Loki's just the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first 3 episodes establish Monica and Sword as the people investigating the Hex. Meanwhile, in the Hex, we have the show which kind of every episode has a different period of sitcom.
Because Wanda grew up on a diet of
American sitcoms,
and so now in her delusion
because it's like a sitcoms to her would be like a safe space, so to speak.
She's created this perfect sitcom world.
Yeah. With some very funny, like it has some great sitcom actors already. Like I think it might have been the first episode maybe. Where it has Peggy from that 70s show.
70s show,
and her husband.
Yeah.
Not Red.
I was disappointed she didn't come back that much. She had like one scene later on.
It had that really great scene where her husband's choking and she's like, stop it. Yeah. And it goes on for just too long.
David Lynch approved.
Yeah, see, that was the David Lynch, and we were like, just do that for the rest of the show. Yeah. But after a few episodes, they don't do that anymore.
You graduate from period to period.
Yeah.
And eventually, Wanda and Vision have kids.
Yeah, and they do like a Malcolm in the Middle kind of.
But there's that really famous still of the baby with the red Vision face, which I think everybody just appreciates.
Oh man.
And essentially, once the children are in the show, that's when things kind of start to get serious.
Yeah, and that's tying back to the point I was making before about how they should have just focused on the MCU connection-y character stuff. I think they should have just started the show. Wanda is grieving. She goes to see Vision's body. She breaks down. And whether she knows what she's doing or not, she creates the family. The father, the Vision, and the 2 sons. But everyone else, I think, should have been normal. and it's just her trying to live a normal life while everyone's kind of talking behind her back. And maybe even have one of the Avengers come and try to talk to her and be like, hey, this is not cool. Like, he's not real and stuff.
So I'm reading through the Avengers comics.
Yeah.
And I got to... Now, I've read all these comics before, but, when you read, like, you forget things.
Yeah, there's so much, yeah.
I finished reading Avengers Disassembled.
Yeah.
Last week. And it's just like a 4-comic arc or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was so interested because it ends with... And I'm assuming this is part of the inspiration for WandaVision. It ends with Wanda being tracked down by the Avengers.
Yeah.
For some reason that escapes me at the moment.
Yeah.
But she's created a fake life in a house, and she's created her fake children, because at this point she realized, I think she knows her children were created from her magic and not like, flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And there's like the fake Vision's there. And when I say fake, I mean they're not physically present. It's all in her mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And Agatha Harkness is dead in the closet.
Yeah.
And Captain America and the Avengers have come to like, Wanda, you need help, blah, blah, blah. I think that would have been an interesting way to end the show.
Wonder this house smells.
See,
no, but see, I was reading that and I'm like, wow, they must have got at least some inspiration from it.
Yeah, they definitely took inspiration from a lot of comic books. That one, and there's also one where Vision creates his own family, and that's a good one too. But what they did is they just took a little bit of inspiration and kind of to fit it into their kind of thing. But I was like, they should have done more of that, like made that the show. It's about it could be still family quote unquote sitcom, but it's like has this dark undertone of like she's created it, and also that way you get more time to bond with the kids who in the show, like there's definitely emotional scenes at the end where she says they're saying goodbye, but I was like they needed to earn that a bit more throughout the whole series,
because they introduced them so late.
It's only 9 episodes. Each episode is about half an hour long.
The kids weren't introduced until like what? Episode 4? Something like that?
I think they were born in 3 and then they grew up in 4. And then 5
like
is
they were
where
established.
they become big. Yeah, no, but they needed to do that earlier. Like just start the show. She creates the whole family and then she's trying to live a normal life and it just gets... things start falling apart.
Yeah.
And that way you could also... tie in Agatha Harkness a bit better, because in the WandaVision show that we get, she's really only in 2 episodes. Because before that, she's pretending to be the nosy neighbor. Yeah. And it's not until the last 2 episodes where she reveals that she's the witch and the villain. So if they actually put more time and effort into creating the whole arc of the show as about her grief and her creating the family, you could have Agatha there from the beginning, and trying to being a mentor and then being maybe a bit of a villain, like...
I think she's look, I've seen... This is one thing that definitely split the nerds from like other people. Because... I've read it, like I said, I read a lot of the Avengers comics, and so the arcs where she's involved with Wanda and her education, a lot of that was in the Avengers. Some in the X-Men, but a lot of that was with the Avengers and so on. And so that's kind of fresh in my memory, because that was from the 90s or late 80s. So fairly recent in comic book history. I mean, recent in quotation marks. And so in my experience with Agatha from the comics was, while her origin story was murky, she wasn't a villain, because that predates her origin story was in Salem, so it predates like heroes and villains. It was kind of just she was a witch who allowed other witches to be killed because it strengthened the gene pool, so to speak.
Because she was introduced in the 60s in Fantastic Four, and she was a villain then.
No, she wasn't. She was Biffles with the Fantastic Four.
No, she looked after the Fantastic Four kids, and her son...
But she was doing shifty stuff.
She's a witch in the 60s. It's, one of those things. It's like Captain America doesn't like her because she's not a Christian.
I think it's more complicated.
So it's complicated because her son, Nicholas Scratch, is a villain. Like an outright villain.
Yeah.
And so she and her magical cat save the Fantastic Four kids from Nicholas Scratch. And there's a whole other thing, like if you ignore that entry point and you look at her role in the Avengers,
like with all comic book characters, they change over time.
She was never an outright villain. People can make arguments about where on the spectrum she lands, but she's never opposed any of the main characters in Marvel.
I feel like
when I say opposed, I mean she's never acted against anyone.
she's never been a standard like I'm going to take over the world villain.
No, like I said, like this is a real complicated thing. We don't have enough time to unpack all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But my point is, from the Avengers' perspective and Wanda's perspective, she was, I won't say mother figure because that's a bit strong. She's a mentor. She was an influence and a mentor because Wanda needed help in the comics, and she was there to provide the help. Regardless of wherever she falls on that, she was always very good to Wanda in the comics. So when you get the Agatha Harkness in the show, immediately she's like this cackling bad guy, and I understand why they did it, especially because due to, in my opinion, bad writing, they introduced her way too late into the mix.
Is it bad writing or interference a little bit? Because they think we need a standard villain to capture.
I think two things. One, they should have done what I said and started her off early, have her be a mentor, and then maybe transition to a villain when she realizes how powerful Wanda is, and maybe she wants some of that for herself. That's fine. Or vice versa. She starts off as a villain and then realizes that maybe she needs to help Wanda because Wanda reminds her of herself. Whatever.
Yeah, but at least that way there's a character arc.
Definitely, they need to start it earlier, and the whole reveal of Agatha, or it was Agatha. That's fun. You know, and it was, funny reveal and every great song, but I was like, at the end of the day.
I also feel like it's just an overall letdown from the way the show was going.
Especially since she's so vital to that, like the Wanda arc. You know what I mean? Like, she's like that. She's one of the people involved in all the big Avengers Wanda arcs.
Well, see, this is the thing. So, in saying all that, on the other hand,
this isn't the comics.
It's not the comics, so they definitely have to distill 60 years of comic book history just for their show to fit into their MCU. But also, we don't really know where this is going with where Wanda's going to go next. So at the very end of WandaVision, Agatha does say, like, you're going to need me.
That's also true.
And Wanda says, I know where to find you.
And
that was definitely a hint of Agatha will come back and be a mentor.
Look, Agatha will help Wanda save Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, either that or she'll come in even later at another time.
If they wanted to introduce her later, I personally don't agree with giving her the personality they gave her.
Yeah.
I think it would have been way better for Wanda to completely lose control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the hex gets unstable, she loses control, everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
And then Agatha steps in and she's like, that could be like the big climax. Instead of having this Dragon Ball Z, purple fireballs versus red fireballs in the sky, and Wanda wins because runes. You know what I mean? Like, it's really...
but see, even that I kind of like, because I'm like, she inadvertently taught her how to do the runes. So it's like, aha, like, I gotcha.
But at the end of the day, it all came down to, my energy beams are better than your purple energy beams because mine are red,
Also, I mean, I don't know if you want to transition to this now, but, like, the fighting, flying in the sky, like, the two visions fighting each other was awesome, but the CGI was crap. And I think...
It's the struggle. Friend of the show, Peter Lee, worked on WandaVision.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job, Peter.
Little Easter egg for listeners.
The CGI we know people. The CGI wasn't crap. Good job, Peter.
We've talked about it before.
The CG was amazing.
We talked about it before. The people who work on this do really hard and they do a great job. But at the end of the day, when you have that much CGI, it never looks great.
No, so
because it's layers and layers of CG, and
and they obviously don't have. If they had all the time in the world, they could make the most realistic CGI ever, but they don't. They're still on a schedule and on a budget. And as we've discussed before, the CGI studios get paid a lump sum, and then if you don't get it done in time, you don't get paid no more. You don't get any overtime, and so they have to. And they're working 24 hours a day.
Disgusting.
People not getting paid. It's really bad.
So, to just take a small detour to what I was saying, I think that the story would have been a lot stronger as a whole if there was no villain. And, like, you know what I mean? If it was just a story about Wanda...
It should have been about Wanda's grief and her personal growth and discovering her ability and being able to control her abilities.
So when you make a villain kind of the centerpiece of the climax... Yeah, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails from all the hard work the first half of the show.
Especially because you've got the White Vision who they made from Vision's dead body, like he's already a villain. And I guess also now it comes to my mind, Monica doesn't do anything at the climax.
Yeah, they show briefly in a few
Her
episodes
stomach
before.
becomes jelly.
Yeah, there's like a couple of scenes that display her powers, but then for people like me and you who are like, we're sitting up in bed, we're like, we
kind of got distracted. Like we forgot to talk about how Monica gets her powers in this series. Yeah,
she walks through the hex and develops powers.
Yeah.
I rolled my eyes a little bit. But it's okay.
It was pretty cool.
You know, look, I don't know what's happened to her kids. In the comics, when she has children...
Who, Wanda's kids?
How many other people in the Hex now have superpowers?
Wiccan and... What's the other one's name?
Speed?
Yeah, Wiccan and Speed. They do die, I think.
Yeah.
But they do have their own individual lives outside of Wanda in like the new event, some of the X-Men stuff and all of that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they came from... the Chaos Stone. What stone did Wanda's powers come from?
I think it was the Mind Stone.
The Mind Stone.
Oh yeah, they come from the Mind Stone technically.
Yeah.
Vision comes from the Mind Stone in this arc. But I'm like, Monica kind of gets her powers technically from the Mind Stone if you count her crossing the hex, which was created by it.
Circular way, kind of. Sort of.
It's becoming very Deus Ex Machina-y.
And if I'm not, I might be mistaken. Isn't that where Captain Marvel gets her powers from?
No, hers was the Tesseract, wasn't it?
But what was inside the Tesseract? It was the Mind Stone, wasn't it? Or is it another one?
It was a stone.
It was a stone. I'm
could have
pretty
been
sure...
in the not time stone.
No,
it was the blue.
It was the blue one, wasn't it?
Is the blue? Yeah, look it up because
I'll look it up, Jamie.
The Mind Stone was in Loki's staff.
Yeah,
and he was using the Tesseract, which was another stone.
I know DC's a very different organization.
Yeah,
but in DC they have one word: metagene. You know what I mean? Like that's what it kind of frustrates me. I'm like, how many people?
Well, this brings us. I mean, I know we're bouncing around a lot, but while we're on the topic, this brings into the thing that we're going to have to mention, which is that because of the rights of X-Men being with Fox, MCU wasn't allowed to have mutants or mention mutants at all. Now they've got the rights back from Fox, and now they can start bringing in the idea of mutants.
Yeah.
Now what they're doing is, and we discussed, I think, on another episode about how they're going to do it, and we had heaps of options. And my vote was for the reverse House of M. Now, in the comic books, Wanda gets so sick of mutants, she uses her powers to get rid of all mutants. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if they did a reverse of that, where she creates mutants, maybe inadvertently by trying to create her children. But since they've done this show, that doesn't really seem they're going to be possible. They did introduce the fake Pietro, which I didn't... I mean, I like... What's it? Evan Peters is her name? Yeah. I like the guy. He was funny. But at the end of the day, I didn't really like that.
Look, you're giving us all blue balls.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
So
they got all these fanboys' hopes up for what amounted to a dick joke.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand that, right?
Yeah.
His name was Robert Boner.
Ralph Boner.
Yeah.
Which,
I'm like,
I was like,
on.
at the end, like, I was like, is he gonna? He's actually. I thought he was gonna be Scratch, right? Like he was gonna be Scratch in disguise. But it was like he ended up just being some guy that
lived
Agatha
in Westview.
found. Yeah.
What a letdown.
But
also, the Tesseract was the Space Stone.
That makes sense. So when they introduced Evan Peters as the fake Pietro, and like Callum was saying, fanboys lost their minds. It's like, oh my god, they're gonna merge the universes.
Yeah, this is how it happens. Yeah.
The Fox X-Men universe with the MCU. And I couldn't have hated that idea more. I was like, I hate the Fox X-Men. There was only a couple of good ones. Yeah, Evan Peters is great, but do we really want them to merge those crappy...
don't make them canon.
Don't make them canon, and don't make the casting canon. I was like, if you do Evan Peters, who else do you have to do?
He's just the one. That's fine.
Okay, you can have one.
Because we like Evan Peters.
Yeah. And Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
And Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
Bring Patrick Stewart and Ian
James
McKellen
McAvoy.
back. Yeah. No.
It's all good.
But anyway, so that I was like, I don't want that at all. That is, if that's Kevin Feige's idea of merging the universe, it's the easiest, laziest version of going like, well, we already have the X-Men movies made. We'll just merge the thing. And in one way, because the MCU is starting to deal with multiverses, in one way that could work because you're like, well, that was just an early multiverse.
We need the culmination of this next phase to begin or end the next phase with AVX. That's what we need.
Well, yeah, we've talked about that before. We'll probably circle back to that again. But like, the multiverses will definitely play a bigger and bigger role as the MCU goes on. Multiverse of Madness, the new next Doctor Strange movie, which Wanda has been confirmed to be in, is definitely going to be big part of that. But like in terms of X-Men, and we even talked once about how they were going to do it, is like maybe they will open up a rift to another universe and the mutants will be there. But I think, all that stuff, it all feels wrong.
It's a bit dirty.
Yeah. And what they did do in WandaVision, which I didn't mind, but Callum I think it might have had problems with, was they do hint at the fact that Wanda was already a mutant. It's just the Mind Stone, when they did experiments on her, that's not what gave her powers. It just brought out her latent abilities, which I am fine with, and I think is the best way to do it, is to say there are already mutants all around the world, and it's only now, for whatever reason, is that they're going to start to emerge because of the snap or
I
because
was going to say, I'll put it to you this way. In terms of X-Men, it's all you have to do is, I was going to say, you mentioned it before I could.
Yeah.
Is simply say, the snap affected some people weirdly.
Well,
and then bam, you have the perfect excuse. Yeah. It's the media gene argument.
Yeah, everyone who was snapped and came back.
Oh, the snap, snap used all five
exactly.
gems.
So everyone with mutant, latent mutant genes was snapped and then brought back by the stones.
Yeah, and it changed the molecular structure.
It's now awakened.
To me, that's a much smoother way to do it without... So my problem with what they did was they made the backstory unnecessarily murky by confusing certain things.
Yeah.
So the original idea is she got her powers through the whatever stone. The
Mind Stone,
yeah. And then you have her... And in the comics, she got her chaos powers after she was born.
Yeah.
Her original power was like energy manipulation or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it got augmented later with by the Chaos God or whatever.
Okay.
But
she was a mutant.
Yeah,
in the comics.
Yeah, exactly. So she wasn't like naturally born with chaos ability. That came after. The thing about Wanda in this is she goes from normal person to being supremely powered, and then they retcon that by saying actually she had powers already, which isn't a problem.
Yeah.
It's just you could do that without negating what you've already written, if that makes sense.
Like, how do they negate it though?
So they make it so originally her and her brother they did tests on them, and you see that in like Age of Ultron or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're like, actually she had powers already.
Yeah.
And then she sees herself through the scepter thing.
I was fine with that. I was like, it's fine that she had powers when she was younger. It's just they never kind of emerge, and it's only until the experiments happened was that they came out of her.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I feel like it's unnecessarily messy. Like to like I understand what you're saying. You need to find a way, but like I said, as far as mutants go, just the snap did it.
But that's the thing. Is she also got snapped, so you could definitely tie that in as well. Of like, it's just she's getting more and more powerful the more the mutant gene comes to the fore.
That's a better idea. Except of course there's not enough time in WandaVision to explain that. Like I'm saying, I just feel like. So if we take the Vision, for example, I think that an unfortunate side effect of having as big scope as they had in WandaVision was some things did get a bit messy.
Yeah.
Even completely disregarding Pietro and Agatha Harkness.
Yeah.
You take... now keep in mind, please correct me, because my mind is, I can't remember each little detail from each episode.
Yeah.
Sword seemed to be tracking Vision in the Hex.
Yeah.
And then when he leaves the Hex... there's a brief period where he stops being like the red, colorful Paul Bettany, and you see his like the remains of actual Vision.
No,
when he's leaving the Hex and he's breaching it.
That wasn't remains. He was just because
decaying
because he's a
manifestation of powers that exist within the Hex.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actual pieces of him coming apart. It was like going back into the Hex.
I'm talking about his face.
No, his face wasn't the dead Vision. The dead Vision was in the lab, and
so there weren't two physical simultaneously.
No. Like she sees him as dead Vision for a split second occasionally because she's remembering what actually happened.
The corpse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not
But
his...
himself, he's just a manifestation of her powers.
Yeah, I know
Like,
that part.
at no point is she actually puppeteering the corpse.
Yeah.
No, I know that.
Which would have been dark. So dark.
For some reason, I thought 100% when he leaves the hex to ask for help from
His
Sword.
No, he falls apart,
he
but
starts-
it's like his essence goes back into the hex.
Yeah, he starts falling to pieces and getting ripped back in, but he's not the corpse. He's
just
the
magic. He's just chaos magic.
Yeah.
Confined
Yeah, no, you're
within the
correct.
hex.
You're correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, while we're on Vision, I also want to talk about how I really like the MCU Vision. I mean, I like him in the comic books, but he was never a favorite of mine. But the MCU Vision, I think, is probably my favorite character now.
I'll be honest, the Marvel Comics Vision,
Yeah,
I don't particularly like him. He's very
He's a bit
emotionless, very flat.
He's much more robotic
very
in the
flat.
comics.
Paul Bettany's Vision has a lot more life, a lot more humor
and
to him.
I like the human moments in. This is one of the reasons I love
is
Civil
ironic.
War.
Which is ironic because he's more human in the comics than he is in the MCU. In
What do
the
you mean?
sense that his brain patterns and all of that are based off a real person.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So it's ironic that he's like more of a robot in the comics than he is in the MCU.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. But as the series go on, I really like him, and so obviously a show about Wanda and Vision, I was gonna love it no matter what. And I think one of the reasons I really like this show, even with all its faults that we've discussed, is I do like how they introduce the idea of bringing Vision back. Because at the end of Infinity War, we were like, how are they going to bring him back? How are they going to bring him back? Endgame didn't answer that question. And now WandaVision hasn't really answered that question, but it's given us an idea of what's going to happen next. She creates the manifestation using her powers of her who she remembers Vision as.
Yeah.
And it's part of the Mind Stone inside her, and she manifests. And as they discuss on the show, when she manifests something, it's actually physically there, tangible. She can change the molecular structure of objects, which is how Monica gets her powers.
Here's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So in the fight scene with White Vision and Standard Vision, or not real Vision,
that's what I'm getting at.
How much of at the end of that fight, Vision, I guess, bestows memories and all the other things.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to get to. So the actual manifestation that Wanda made is her magic, her memory and love for Vision, and her inner Mind Stone abilities. The White Vision is made from his actual physical corpse and contains his memory pathways. And they have that great conversation where they talk about the ship, where it's like each little piece as it rots gets replaced until the whole ship is a new ship. Or is it actually the old ship still? And I love that moment in the show.
So is White Vision technically OG Vision?
That's what I'm saying.
This is more of a philosophical question.
Yeah, when hallucination, manifestation, magic Vision touches White Vision's brain and gives him his memories, they merge and become the original Vision again, but without the Mind Stone element, or at least the physical stone, because the stone's gone. And then White Vision just flies off. It says "I am Vision" and flies off.
He has to go find a paint store.
And I was like, I really like that they kind of do settle how Vision will return. But it'll be interesting how, I'm assuming in the movies, when they bring him back proper. Now, and if he's going to recolor him. And I hope, because...
I never read
He's going to stay white and he's going to get dirty everywhere. It's like smudges just...
He'll be Black Vision pretty soon.
Just dusty Vision.
He just walks through a car wash every once in a while. But so two things. I like the redesign of the White Vision with the kind of... blue triangular thing instead of the Mind Stone. I like some of the different ridges on his face. I really like that. And I hope what they do is not just make White Vision purple again. I hope they make him maybe a bit more, not like his comic book, but I hope they give him a slight redesign because they're not going to leave him white, I don't think.
Well, they're going to give Wanda a redesign. I mean...
Oh, yeah. And then now we can, while we bring that up, she gets the OG Scarlet Witch costume, which I thought was pretty dope.
It's pretty cool.
Because one thing I like about the MCU is that it's kind of comic booky and it embraces some of the quote unquote silliness.
Well, and like we got we got the OG Quicksilver costume.
Yeah, that was fun. The Halloween episode was pretty funny. But like a lot of superhero movies now, it's the gritty reboot. It has to be realistic, and that's boring. And the MCU does a good job of like bringing the comic bookiness.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't go maybe as far as it should or could. And so I liked at the end of WandaVision, they find a way to give Wanda her comic book.
Her Scarlet costume. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like she wasn't called the Scarlet Witch because she had like the, the red energy. It was because she was dressed that way.
Yeah. It's because she had red hair.
Like
I think
like
Marvel plays a delicate game of trying to make things accessible for the mainstream public and also giving the nerds what they want.
Yeah,
and this is they do I guess they do keep both sides pretty happy overall.
I think definitely it's definitely you can be a casual viewer and you can also be a hardcore comic nerd.
For all the problems I had with it and James had with it and other people have it, it was still the best show week to week on television when it was airing. And that's how I feel about Marvel.
Asterisk week to week.
Week to week.
Yeah, I have to think of the other shows that are coming out.
Like I said, I don't like every choice Marvel of there are choices they make I don't like, especially with Captain Marvel and with some of the. I'm sure some of the other. You will not. I'm sure you will hear me whinge at some point in the future. Marvel still makes the best superhero movies in the market. Hands down.
We talked about it before. Is even when Marvel screws up, they never screw up so badly that you hate what they're doing and you're like, screw them. Like DC screws up badly all the time and they're spiteful to comic fans and they don't understand what they're doing and we hate it. But when MCU screws up, you're like, watch it, Kevin. But otherwise, you're like, all right.
Yeah. When they screw up, it's like it's a waste of an opportunity.
Yeah.
Not so much that it's like, I can't believe they hate their
don't do anything to spite you.
Yeah. And it's a waste of opportunity.
And there's going to be like 70 other shows and movies that are going to kind of fix it or pick it up later or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
We're running out of time, but we forgot to mention with the multiverse thing, the idea of the Nexus, which is like a person who is always the same throughout all the...
Has that been in the movies?
Well, they mention, I think in WandaVision, there's one of the funny commercials.
Yeah.
As like for like Nexus... antidepressant pills. It's like you're the same. You always feel the same or something.
Yeah.
So they're hinting at Wanda being a Nexus, which is like a person who's always the same throughout all the multiverses. So that could be in Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange.
She has to pull him out.
They go to different universes with different versions of the MCU, which will be cool to see, but she's always the same. That'll be interesting.
It's like a giant what if live action.
Yeah. Also, I mean, end credits teaser, there's like a Skrull lady who recruits...
Secret invasion.
Who recruits Monica and says, there's some bad Skrulls. I'm like, well, now they're introducing the bad Skrulls. Thank you very much. After you ruined them.
They'll fix it. Just take some more.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were just talking about. How it's like the MCU, they screwed up, but they're gonna make it right. Monica's got her powers. She's being recruited.
They'll always right the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, by Nick Fury, probably, and going to space and gonna fix. And then there's another post credits where Wanda's in a cabin. And I just rolled my eyes. I was like, that was a lame ass.
I was like, you wasted Agatha Harkness so she can teach herself magic in a cabin.
Yeah, she does the Ray thing where she learns it out of a book.
Yeah.
She's like reading the Necronomicon or whatever it was. I was like, boring.
Being like teaching herself magic or whatever has worked so well for her this far.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, Agatha's said she'll be there, so but and then there's like, I think Wanda then hears her children cry out for help.
In one of the multiverses.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if that's going to be Multiverse of Madness plotline, but I was like, that's kind of lame too.
Just standard old PTSD.
I was like, are you really going to...
I had a tough week.
Are you really going to bring the kids back so soon? Like, how, like, like we said, they didn't really set them up early enough. Then they killed them off, and now you bring them back again?
Yeah. Look, I think it was a very good show.
Yeah.
I think that it should have just been about grief at the end of the day.
Yeah, it should have just been more self-contained.
You can still have the climax, like I said, but maybe it starts off as that stable, happy family life.
Yeah.
Then the further you go,
Well,
Yeah.
the more
like,
unstable the hex gets,
the way-
and the
yeah.
harder it is for Wanda to sustain it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
The,
So
the way I wanted
The
to
outside
show,
world keeps intruding in on her,
Yeah.
and like the snap keeps intruding in on her the further you get into the season,
Yeah.
and then she realizes that Vision's dead.
like, and we saw elements of what it could have been. Like, I wanted the show to be that meditation on grief.
Yeah.
And like, the whole thing's created, obviously by her mind, but as it gets harder to sustain, maybe the neighborhood starts rebelling and things get a bit dark and creepy, and like it's all in her mind.
That brings up a good point we forgot to talk about. Wanda, whether she meant to or not, imprison these people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
basically torture
A
them.
war
Start.
crime. Basically a war crime.
Apparently,
Yeah.
it was according to the townspeople, it was agonizing.
And at the end, she just kind of says sorry to Monica and then flies away. And I was like, she
Yeah.
needs a redemption arc. That
Yeah.
is,
She needs jail
that is,
time.
yeah, that is not okay. I was like, when she walking up to Monica, I was like, I hope she hands herself in.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know Sword wasn't really doing the right thing, but like, I was like, she can't just walk away scot-free. But she does. And all the townspeople just give her greasies and
Yeah.
she flies. And I was like, that's not cool. She needs to
No, but
redeem
like,
herself.
I would have preferred the show to be that meditation on grief, anger, all the stages, all the stages of grief, right?
and also,
and we don't really we get a little bit of it,
Yeah.
but not.
Yeah, like there has to be. I mean, obviously they're not going to do 2 seasons because it's like a standalone that
Yeah.
leads into the movies. But if they're going to do something like this, they need at least an aftermath episode where she has to make it up to all the people.
They're just gonna brush it under the rug. I
Yeah, no,
guarantee it.
exactly. The next movie will start. She'll be in the cabin, and Doctor Strange will rock up at her door and be like, "I need your help, yo," or
Yeah,
something.
one of those portals will open.
Yeah, or she
Yeah.
comes to him and says, "I can hear my kids, crying in another universe," and he was like,
It's good enough for me.
yeah. I was planning to go to another dimension
Yeah.
anyway.
It'd be
Well-
like that Rick and Morty meme. Yeah, quick
Yeah,
adventure,
yeah,
in and
quick
out, 2
20-minute
minutes. We'll get your kids.
Yeah.
Neck minute, Mephisto.
Also, they're doing Spider-Man 3 is going to be like a Spider-Verse thing, right? Because they're bringing back
Allegedly.
not Tobey
No,
Maguire,
so
they're
that's
bringing back
Yeah, well,
a
so
bunch of
that's-
actors from the old Spider-Man.
So that's contested.
yeah,
So the rumor still remains,
yeah,
but all the people involved deny it.
yeah.
So I don't
Oh.
know whether they are bringing them back or it was just like one rumor that got out of hand.
Yeah.
They'll deny it until it's out.
Until it's out, yeah.
Honestly, I don't expect it. I think that would be a massively
Well, look,
controversial
but,
push.
No, but this goes into the fact that, like, if they're bringing multiverses together, they can do it.
yeah, but it's one thing in an
It'll fit-
animated
But
show.
the only problem would be
fit,
rights.
It'll fit into their what they're doing with the multiverses at the moment in the MCU, but I feel like as we discuss a lot, it'll be too much.
Yeah.
Hey, member.
yeah,
And
that's
also
it.
the legal problems with, like,
Yeah.
that's all
Well,
Sony, but
so
it's
if-
like
if
getting
they're-
the rights
if they're
to play with
partnering-
all of these movies.
Yeah, but if they're partnering with Sony, they might just extend the deal
Yeah.
to
I just don't
encompass like we're gonna
That's also true.
we're gonna cast.
I just
the
don't
old
think it would
people.
work. You know what I mean? I think it like that kind of
Yeah.
thing works with. I mean, Spider-Verse, of course, doesn't have this problem because it's the one property.
Yeah.
But it works in Spider-Verse to have all these different versions of the characters.
Yeah,
I don't see how it would work with
It would
Andrew
al-
Garfield, Tobey Maguire,
it would be
and
it would be
Tom
boring
Holland.
too because we've already had Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
and like I just said,
And
like
the
it's too
animated movies
nostalgia.
do it much better
it's
than
too-
live action
yeah,
could.
It's too nostalgia driven. It's too hey, remember,
Yeah.
like it's like come on, like we
Like,
want.
I know some people like, yeah, but think of the meme potential. But like,
Oh,
I get that.
Hey,
but
Sam Raimi made sure we got enough memes for a long, long time.
that's it. I'm like, we don't need any more. It's fine.
Yeah, this enough.
Um.
Oh man,
Yeah. So.
I think we got through everything.
Yeah, I think we did
Pretty
a good
much.
job.
That's surprising. I was like, we're gonna need at least 2 hours, but jeez.
I mean, we'll see what happens with Agatha Harkness going forward.
I reckon
think
she'll be back.
She'll
in the
definitely be
movie.
back. If not in the next movie, like 2-3 years from
I mean,
now.
I hope
like,
they give her a tone change. I don't. They might. We'll see. Depends on what happens in
yeah,
the Doctor Strange movie. We got a few weeks until the new Disney show starts.
oh
Falcon and
yeah,
Winter Soldier.
yeah. I think this
I'll let,
week. This week is like the making of WandaVision, and then next week, Falcon Winter Soldier starts.
Yeah, so very little downtime.
Yeah,
Disney, well,
Um,
they're hitting hard. I
wall to
guess.
wall. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
And then watch in a
non-stop.
year or two, it's going to be 6 months of Star Wars, 6 months of Marvel.
Yeah, which
Guaranteed.
The best way to live, man.
Keep the nerds. Keep the nerds on a drip.
It sounds great, but then it happens, and you're
Yeah.
like, ugh.
No. I'm
Like
fine with it.
but when I was a kid and you told me there's going to be a new
Yeah.
Star Wars movie and TV show every 6 months, I would have been like, hell yeah, but now, ugh.
You know what though? It was always going to happen this way.
Yeah.
Because this is the only surefire way they keep people subscribed long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No, definitely. That's their MO. Yeah. Shout out to Randall Park as Jimmy Woo.
Oh man, the car tricks.
So good.
He was very good.
I mean, everyone was good in the show, but, wanted to give
Yeah.
him a shout out.
Let's
Yeah.
just hope Monica's as cool in the MCU as she is in the comics.
Yeah.
Because she
We
leads
haven't
the
seen-
Avengers for quite a while.
Yeah, we haven't seen the extent of her powers, but
we know she's got jelly stomach.
Yeah.
Stop bullets.
yeah.
Yeah, because she leads the Avengers. There's lots of space adventures with
Yeah.
with her as the helm.
I just worry with the cosmic phase, it's going to be the CG is going to be atrocious.
Oh,
every
it's gonna be
every
really
movie,
bad.
every movie is going to be wall to wall CG.
No,
Well,
you know, look. Lucas could do it in the
Guardians-
70s and it was fine. I'm sure
Guardian-
Marvel can do it now.
practical effects though, Callum.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. Now they do it with CGI. It looks like crap. But Guardians of the Galaxy
That's true.
looked okay. But Captain Marvel looked terrible.
Oh, terrible film.
It's a terrible movie with terrible CGI.
Remember when she was falling?
Andy from
Toy
Toy Story
Story,
falling
yeah.
through the sky. What the? You just filmed the actress on a green screen. What the hell is wrong with these people? Send us a check, please. We can make so many better choices than one of you. But see, that's another problem with them. As much as we love MCU, one of the problems, which we'll talk about again in the future many times, is that when it comes to action, apparently they don't let the directors do anything. They're like, you direct a movie, yeah, whatever, but action, we'll just do it. CGI, we'll just do it.
That's weird.
And that's why movies like Black Panther, which have such great
Yeah, but then the CG.
directing, is like the action CGI was terrible.
Especially at the end in Black Panther, when they
Yeah.
ran out
Yeah.
of CG and it was
Oh.
Exactly.
awful.
Like
They still haven't got anything on
the
DC though.
the only
That last
DC
act
takes the
in
cake.
Batman vs
Yeah.
Superman.
But like, I guess Winter Soldier and the Russo brothers were the only exception, I guess. So we'll have to see what happens
Well,
in the next few movies.
and will that change for TV as well? Because the stakes are kind of like
Lower.
Well, TV
budgets are
TV
lower.
is a writer-producer medium, so
Yeah.
or automatically the director doesn't matter, and so whoever's overseeing the whole project, Kevin Feige or whoever, I mean, I know there's a showrunner. We'll just
Yeah, they'll
have an idea of, and of course the CGI studio will have to rush it, and that's why it never looks that good, even if they do have a budget that equals one of the movies. It's just that time and that planning, it's not there. And honestly, man, do it practically. If you can, do it practically.
it's probably cheaper, to be honest.
And it'll last forever.
You get high quality sets. They don't have to be made out of. You don't have to get like real steel to have like a fake steel set.
Yeah, I
you
know.
what
It's
mean?
called cardboard. Heard of it? You can paint it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Plywood, balsa wood. Ever heard of it?
Yeah, I'm like, you don't need like it's a lot cheaper.
But it's also like, it's fine if you have the green screen section. I mean, it looks better if it's a set or a location. But it's like, have the actors on wires fighting each other,
yeah.
then CGI in what you have to. Don't have two CGI blobs fighting in front of a screen CGI background. It looks terrible.
Obviously, we don't have time tonight. We might talk about it next week, depending on what else we have to talk about. But Callum and I saw the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
practical
Oh my God.
effects, man. The practical effects on a stage show
Yeah.
Yeah.
blew my
No,
mind.
like I'm a grown man. I
Yeah.
know about wire work, and I know about
No,
about.
but
And
there's
you're like,
there's
magic.
you
Yeah,
can't
no.
see-
Satan.
Yeah, you can't CG a stage show, right?
Yeah.
So they like that at the moment. That is the forefront of practical effects.
Yeah.
And there's effects that I saw in the show that I
can't
still don't know
explain.
how they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's magic, right? You're seeing these practical effects, and you're just like,
That's-
they're on like a 10-foot stage.
We've talked
What's
about,
going on here?
We've talked about this before. When you watch a movie with great practical effects, you're like, wow, how did they do that? That's incredible. That's mind-blowing. That's so intricate. When you watch a movie with CGI, whether it's good or bad, you know how they did it. They did it in a
Yeah.
computer. Now, as I said, the people who worked on it worked really hard and they did a great job. But at the end of the
It's
day,
a budget issue.
wow, big whoop, they did it all on a computer.
Yeah.
When you do something practically, even if I know how the sausage is made, I still love the taste of the sausage. So when I see great stunts, great practical effects, I'm still like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's still, and it has
The
that tangible
tangibility.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like the effort they put into making something, crafting something, and having to get it right.
It doesn't feel like it's so fake, if that makes
You know,
sense.
Yeah, and
practical effects
it
doesn't-
feels less lazy than CGI.
Practical
CGI
effects
just feels
doesn't
lazy.
mean you have to waste a Lambo every take.
Yeah,
It
like-
ages better too.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know, in 30 years, like some of the CG in the Marvel movies
And-
might look a little tacky.
And as we've discussed, like the best way to do it in 2020 or 2021 is a combination of both. Do as much practical as you can.
And augment it.
CGI, augment it with CGI, and CGI when you can't. That's why Lord of the Rings is so great. It's all practical except the bits they couldn't do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like they couldn't fly the eagles in, so they had to CG it.
Oh, I don't know, man. I reckon those eagles were real. Peter Jackson, you know? No. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, make sure to tune in next episode. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Oh, so we have something Gandalf related.
Maybe. Maybe not. That's all I'll say.
Alrighty.
We'll see how things go because I'll say that and then next week it'll
Yeah.
all fall apart. So no promises.
But we'll try.
Yeah, we'll try.
Alrighty. Well, I think we got through everything.
Yeah,
that'll do.
I thought we were going to do longer, but we smashed through that.
That was good. Good,
Yeah.
vigorous discussion.
It went really
Right,
quickly.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everybody. As usual, you can catch all the shows on iTunes, Spotify, Shout Engine, or wherever you listen. Please like and share the Facebook page, the Twitter, the Instagram, and all the socials. Adios, cousins.